as the first step to positioning it as a Think Big designated institution. This program consists of a 49 credit hour technical certificate B and a 61 credit hour Associate of Applied Science. The program is accredited through the Associated Equipment Distributors Foundation, and students will earn several NC3 Kubota certifications, including basic maintenance procedures and preventative maintenance inspection. They are anticipating enrollment of 10 students in year 1 and 20 students in years 2 and 3 at this point. The Kansas Department of Labor long-term occupational projections show an increase of 0.7% annually and an annual median wage of $57,530 for this occupation. The typical education needed for entry is a high school diploma or equivalent, and the annual openings equate to 191 jobs per year. This occupation is also on the most recent high demand occupation list from the Kansas Department of Labor. In our Lightcast job postings between April 2023 and April 24, 393 total postings were advertised statewide. The annual median advertised salary was $63,000. And when we remove those job postings with no education level listed, 87% of the postings do indicate the high school diploma or equivalent for entry in the occupation. On the Perkins Local Needs Assessment, there were 77 individuals focused on technical fields within all subcategories of SIP code 47. But the data presented in the report highlighted a significant demand for graduates in these subcategories, surpassing the number of concentrators. We have 5 letters of support from industry included in the proposal, and some of the commitments and supports include donations, interviewing program graduates, assisting with curriculum development, and serving on the advisory board. Wichita Public Schools USD 259 also provided a letter of support for the program. We currently have one institution offering a similar program based on SIP code, and the academic year 2022 data is included in the packet. WSU Tech explained that they contacted Washburn Institute of Technology to discuss collaboration. And currently, the program is not being offered at Washburn Tech, so they determined that they will maintain close communication so that collaboration can occur if or when they start their program again. And they have also worked to lay the groundwork for a 2+2 agreement with Pittsburgh State University. This would enable graduates to enter the PSU Think Bigger program. The college plans to begin this proposed program in the fall of 2024, estimating initial cost of $51,000 total. That includes $50,000 for existing full-time faculty, and then another $1,000 for equipment and tools. The funding will be provided from their institutional budget in the new program development fund. Jesse Lane, the Dean of Applied Technologies, will assume responsibility for the program. This program is also subject to the 10-day comment period during which no comments were received. And I know that Jesse's on the line, and I think we have a few other folks from WSU Tech, and we would stand for questions.
Thank you, Charmin. Jesse or anyone else from WSU Tech, do you care to add or comment?
Sure, this is Jennifer Seymour. Jesse is definitely the subject matter expert, so I will let him take the reins here. But we do also have Kayla Lind from Foley, one of our industry partners, who wrote a letter of support that is happy to answer any questions you might have as well. So, Jesse, is there anything you'd like to add?
I don't believe so.
All right, any questions from committee members? Thank you, Jennifer and Jesse, by the way.
This is Ray. I was surprised a little bit that 10 students the first year seems to underestimate, because you're saying the demand is so high. I just wondered why only 10.
Yeah, Ray, with that 10, we were estimating that just for program costs to make sure that we're being sustainable and projecting for the future, to make sure that financially this is a stable program. So if we exceed that 10, I think that's a win. We have capacity for significantly more than that as we open up the program.
Well, what are you doing to exceed 10?
So a lot of recruitment with partners like Foley Equipment, and as well as working with the area high schools to provide this opportunity for them as well.
Okay.
We also have a number of students that are in our current traditional automotive program that have expressed interest in this program. So initially, we expect that we'll probably rob a few students from our traditional program until this one takes off and stands on its own.
This is Cindy. I was just curious, did Washburn give any indication of why they had disbanded their program? Just curious if it was a lack of interest from the students or if there was any reason given for that.
I didn't hear any reason given for why they disbanded their program. There was interest in the future of bringing that back, and they are more than glad to work with us on bringing their program back as well. So we would love to be the leaders on filling the demand.
Okay, thanks.
Well, this is Ray again. Are you suggesting, or is it your impression they disbanded the program, or are they just pausing?
They just said they're not currently offering the program, but hope that they can bring it back.
Okay.
But they didn't give us a ton of detail as to why. I'm wondering if it wasn't maybe a faculty. They didn't have a current faculty member who was qualified in that area, but they didn't really divulge.
How are you dealing with that challenge of finding a faculty member out of business and industry that's willing to come and make that transition?
We currently have a faculty member that has been teaching the light duty side, which has actually been doing a lot of continuing education, doing training classes with like Foley Equipment and several other industry partners. We also have one on deck that has industry experience that is one of our adjuncts that as we continue to grow this program, we would have the opportunity to bring them on full time if this continues to grow and be successful.
You mentioned Foley several times. I think you said maybe they're on the phone. Is there any partnership there as far as those that are coming out of the program and having an opportunity straight away to interview or any guaranteed spots or anything like that?
Kayla, feel free to jump in.
Yes, we do have a current running program with WSU Tech. And one of the things that WSU Tech has been a fantastic partner with us, and we started in more of this automotive-based program, and they've been working with us to develop out the diesel part of that. So as Jesse alluded to, this just continues to grow. And for us, they've just been a fantastic partner. We've already hired on 3 and have 6 more getting ready to graduate, and we only intend to develop that number. Jeff or Tommy, if you want to speak to the demand and the partnership that we currently have with WSU Tech.
Go ahead, Smarsh.
Yeah, so the demand is most certainly there, right? And it's been exciting to see this continue to build and see those numbers grow. I think part of it is this was a little bit of a ground up development in that it was focused on automotive. And as we're getting folks to come to work and get experience and exposure to the diesel and heavy equipment side of it, from our standpoint, we've seen and received direct feedback from those in the program that it's just fueled their curiosity and wanting to learn and push towards the diesel side of things away from the automotive, because some of those theories transfer over directly, right? But you're working on much different shapes and sizes of items between the two. So it's excellent, and the industry demand continues to grow and grow, right? Not just for us to staff the technicians that we need to be able to support our customers, but the customers as well that want to take on some of their own repairs. So I don't know if that's answering the question or not, but
Yes, absolutely. Thank you.
One of the things that I've enjoyed working with the WSU program and getting those technicians through their courses is we're doing a mix of classroom and dealership work. So they come work at our dealership while they're going through school, so they're getting some of the hands-on to translate what they're learning through the courses, and that's been very beneficial for us.
Yeah, this is Ray. I'm curious, Jeff and Tommy, what are your roles at Foley?
yeah, you bet. Sorry, I didn't formally introduce myself, but my role at Foley is general service manager. I've been with Foley for 15 years, in service for all of those 15. Essentially, I've got the western half of our whole territory for construction service and some truck service focus.
Yeah, and I'm Tommy Phelps. I'm out of the Wichita store here, so I'm the service manager. I've been with Foley Equipment about 19 years. I've been in service the whole time here. I started out as a technician in the shop and I worked through field service and grew up in service here at Foley Equipment. But so I'm responsible for anything construction service related, kind of South Central Kansas area is my area of responsibility.
Where did you guys get your training and your education? Curious.
Mine was Dodge City Community College.
Pardon?
Mine was Dodge City Community College.
Okay.
And I went through Pittsburgh State University for mine.
Great.
All right. Any additional questions from the committee?
Yeah, Mike, this is Mark. I had one question just related to any certifications specific. Do they get like a Caterpillar, either powertrain, power plant certifications or industry certification these guys are going to go through to, at the program, be awarded towards the end?
Currently, what we're looking at is the AED accreditation and those certifications. That is kind of the standard for that particular industry and what they're looking for. So, if we continue down the Caterpillar path, that is one of the biggest requirements that Caterpillar has is the AED.
Good.
Thank you, Jesse. Any additional questions? All right. If not, I'll entertain a motion to approve WSU's application for a Tech Cert C AAS degree in mobile equipment technology and place it on the consent agenda.
So moved.
Thank you, Cindy.
Second it.
Thank you, Mark. All in favor, please say aye.
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 All right. Motion approved. Thank you, Jennifer and Jesse and the team from Foley for joining. It's always nice to hear, especially the two of you, one from Dodge Community College, another from Pitt State, staying in the state. We appreciate that. All right, Charmin. Let's jump to item B on the discussion agenda, and that relates to the program that we just discussed for the Promise Act.
Yes, sir, that's right. So this program falls under the distribution, logistics, and transportation category that is specified in legislation, and it is identified as a high demand occupation on the last listing from the Kansas Department of Labor. So it would be eligible for Promise Act scholarship eligibility.
Thank you, Charmin. Any questions from the committee? If not, I will approve or listen for a motion to approve WSU Tech's request for mobile technology in the Promise Act and place it on the consent agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you, Mark. All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed? All right. Congratulations, WSU Tech. And
Thank
again,
you.
thanks everyone for joining today too. All right, Miss Rita, taking us to item C with these darn little goals you had in the packet.
Rita, you're on mute right now.
Just my message just popped up. Yes, goals. We're looking at the goals. As I started working on this, I went back and looked at some of the background history behind why we set goals and where they came from, and the last actual mission statement that I could find that was established by the TEA was to drive the advancement of a robust technical education system to meet the needs of Kansas business and industry. And the vision was to focus on being a national leader, premier technical education system, and develop highly prepared Kansas workforce. And to this end, members then began establishing goals, and they basically fell into three major categories. One of them was to align the technical education offerings within the system and to be sure that the system was aligned with the needs of business and industry. The second was to enhance the system, enhance the participation, expand the talent pool, and also to enhancing policy and funding. And to that extent, the instructional cost model was developed. And then there was evaluating and measuring the system effectiveness. That's where our program review processes and so forth came in, to be sure that we were trying to measure what we were doing and to see how we were progressing. So wrapping all that up, what's listed next are the 10 goals that were established for last year. And each one of those goals was then subdivided into one of the three committees to determine what kinds of tasks, activities, and information would need to be provided so that the board could meet those goals. And the goals that were initially identified for this particular program were to work with the Department of Commerce and to in developing definitions, guidelines, and processes for work-based learning, which included apprenticeships, internships, and work experience. And I think a lot of that has been done, but there may be some additional things that might need to be tweaked. Was to improve the program alignment between KSDE and post-secondary institutions based on industry input. That continues, and I would assume you would want to continue making that connection. Working with Commerce and developing, expanding the apprenticeship model, to review and make recommendations for high wage, high demand, technical need, and qualified transfer programs for the 4 general fields of study identified in the Promise Scholarship. Continuing the ongoing Excel and CTE fee reviews, and that normally comes as we approve new programs. Determine the best way to record participation, promote awareness, and emphasize the value of customized training that is occurring at the institution using the input from the community and technical colleges and universities. Some additional topics that have been floated forward, and I bring them to this group to decide whether or not it's something that you would like to also include. One would be to explore a methodology to share best practices and communicate student participation rates in work-based learning opportunities. Another would be to resume the performance reviews using the established criteria to validate and communicate the value of technical education. And that, I will remind you, we went through a whole process of program reviews, and we were to cycle back over so many years. With 2020 and COVID and everything shutting down, that kind of stopped. And so it's been mentioned that one of the things you might want to consider is to potentially begin resuming those again now that the programs are running back up to speed and kind of overcoming the devastation that the shutdown brought forward. Another one was to continue work with Commerce on apprenticeships and to include a method to identify and report the number of apprentices participating. We know we have several apprenticeship programs up and running, but we're not, at least at this time, they're not tracking what how many students are participating. And so that was brought forward. The last one was to improve the integration of programs between community and technical colleges and the adult ed centers to streamline joint programs such as AOK or whatever programs might exist or be already in existence, to streamline the educational pathways and communication channels so that learners can seamlessly move from our adult ed centers right into our technical programs, and to kind of focus some activities looking at what's happening in that arena. And so with that, I would just like to get your feedback. What I will do, I mean, I have met with each one of the committees now, and several have determined, some things they want to add, some things they, and some of the additional things they want to put in. I will bring this information in a revised list back on May 30th for you all to look at, and then make a final determination on what kinds of activities you want us to focus on. So I would stand for any comments or suggestions.
This is Deb. I really liked that, the idea of the working with commerce. So under the additional topics, you took on the third bullet, it took and expanded what we had up above. And I thought that actually is pretty important. And it kind of goes along with the how we're sharing or how we're communicating or even tracking student participation rates and work-based learning opportunities. And I know the Commerce or Cable or someone, I'm not remembering who, we're putting some additional funding out to some schools to do some of this. And it's kind of in its beginning stages. And if we're going to evaluate how effective it is and whether it's worth continuing to support financially as well as whatever, we probably do need to look at evaluating not only apprenticeships, but then student participation rates and work-based learning opportunities.
Absolutely. There is additional funding in the budget for that particular purpose. And so if that's the case, we thought we probably ought to start kind of looking at how we're going to have to measure it, or so that we can share the information going forward to hopefully continue that funding to help validate a purpose for continuing that additional funding outside of the technical edge, outside of the tiered, non-tiered formulas. So any other comments from any of the other members?
Yeah, I would agree with Deb's recent comment. I also reflect back to our 23-24 goals, number 10. And we've had, I think, even during a couple of our authority meetings, we've talked about, the best way to record that customized training or that B&I training. And I think we still need to, other than having conversations about it, I still think we need to figure out a way to track and identify that.
Absolutely. I think when we had I think it was in March, we said, I think April presented an issue paper that said, here's the 10 goals and here's the status. And that was one that didn't have, there was not much to report. It was something that was yet needed to be addressed more fully. And so I would assume that you would want to continue with number 10.
Yeah.
In fact, on the original 10, most of them are going to be things that are just day-to-day business stuff we do, and information that we provide to you on an ongoing basis in order for you to have the information to carry out your responsibilities.
Right.
So that begs the question for me. If it's an ongoing activity that's just part of of the responsibility of staff, then should it be on a goal? Is it a goal to continue to look at Excel and CTE fewer? I mean, we do that. Is that a goal? I don't know. Usually with goals, you have a specific goal with a date and it's kind of outside of the normal day-to-day activities. And these really are more of a restatement of day-to-day activities. Not all of them, but
Yeah.
many of them. So just a thought as to what we want this to be.
Sure.
Don't all respond at once.
Yeah, I don't,
Cindy, my only question with that is that if they are part of the operational process, then are they embedded or identified in the operational process? So if we expect them to be ongoing, then how does it become identified or embedded in the regular operational process? So that would be my question. If they're not listed here, then how does that transition or occur in practice?
A good question. I don't know the answer to, but it's a good question. Rita, is that documented anywhere? Like, is a standard operating procedure kind of a thing?
Not to my knowledge. I mean, other than as we look at the the statutorial responsibilities of and the additional responsibilities that have been added to the TEA. I know in March is separate from the goals was this list of responsibilities. Some of them were by statute and some of them were additional responsibilities that the board had designated the TEA to be responsible to monitor. So other than that list of responsibilities, specific activities within there are not listed. And that's where some of these, because for example, one of the statutory responsibilities was to establish the instructional cost model. It's established. The fact that we continually look at, revise, and want to validate its reliability is not included in there. Just the development of it was. And so, and program approvals. We have to approve all new and existing programs. That's where program review comes in, is reviewing the existing programs. New programs have to go through our approval process to be recommended that they be approved by the regents. That's part of the statutory requirements.
And I will add to that so if we look at the improved career or CTE alignment between secondary and post-secondary, we are required by state law and federal law, so underneath Perkins, to do that. We started that this year. So that alignment is kind of embedded in everything we do. So we are working on that. The ongoing, continue the ongoing Excel and CTE fee reviews. We're also required to do that. That's what we do about every January. So some of these things we could go through, staff could go through and highlight the things that we have to do. So review and recommend high wage, high demand, critical need programs for Promise Act. We do that just about every month with this committee. We just did it with WSU Tech's program. Annually, we have to look at that and see if any new ones have come on board. We do that, that's just kind of built into our staff's yearly process.
Well, that's what I'm wondering, if we want to take this any farther, if we want to leave some goals that become then operational in a sense as for the unit or expand. If we want to, I don't know, have a list of these are what, this is what we do on an ongoing basis from our perspective as a committee. and then identify goals as we develop or go beyond what we were doing and addressing new ideas, new thoughts. I'm just wondering.
Oh, we could split it up. We could say legislative requirements, and ongoing sustainable work or whatever we want to call it, right? We could list those, and then we could have stretch goals or something like that. And instead of having 15 stretch goals, you'd have a manageable, 3 to 5 stretch goals, because the rest would be normal, standard operating procedure kind of stuff.
Okay.
Just a thought. I don't know, Mike, anyone else got any thoughts?
Yeah, I agree with that, Cindy. There's just things that the authority or staff have to do on a yearly basis. I don't think that needs to be included in our goals. That's just what we've got to do. That's my thought. But Rita or April, I would like to add for our AY 2025 a goal around military articulation, just to kick that off again or to enhance it. Kansas has done a lot of great work, and a lot of that work goes to the staff at KBOR, but we were leading the pack. Now we're just one of the other wolves in the pack. So
Okay.
I'd like to get us above the rail again. And plus that aligns with keeping our soldiers here in Kansas too.
Yeah.
Well, and just to add, one of the things that we're making some real differences with are the work we do with corrections, in the corrections programs. And I don't know exactly how those are being monitored or measured or impact is being evaluated. And for our committee, there may be an interest in knowing what programs are offered at the correctional institutions. Anyway, and which ones are followed up with in work employment. I don't know. That's just a thought. And it could be a thought for a future year.
Okay. And basically, you're asking, you would like to have more information about what is currently occurring with corrections, because we have adult ed has dealings in corrections, as well as the community and technical colleges have technical programs in the correctional facilities. So we have two avenues to connect corrections, but you're wanting more information to see, or you want us to expand, improve, or
I'm not sure what. I know we're making some really good progress with what's happening with corrections and workforce training.
Okay.
Or I believe we are, is what I understand. So I'm not sure what the goal would be. That's why I said it may be a future one that we think on. But I think it's probably pretty important, because we've got to grow the workforce.
Yeah.
And there are individuals that are currently in corrections, but that have been and are, or can make a difference with workforce productivity. So I don't know. So that's why I'm saying I don't know that I have an answer to a specific goal, but to keep that in mind would probably be good for us.
Okay. Any other additions? Okay, I will try to go through the 10 existing and subdivide them into ongoing things, and then something that may be a stretch goal or something we want to expand upon. For example, we established the apprenticeship information about apprenticeships, and we have apprenticeships program, and then we want to attach the identifying participation rates or something to that effect as a goal. If we're making a change to something that was ongoing operational, then I can put it in a separate area for goal consideration. Does that sound doable, or will that help you as you're discussing these or looking at these?
Yes, it would help me a lot. Thank you.
Okay, I can do that.
I agree. Thank you, Rita.
Sure.
Anything else?
That's all. I just needed to know how to put this together for our meeting on the 30th. Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you, Rita. All right, item D, update on existing program review process. Charmin, I think.
Yes.
Yep. Sorry.
Yes, sir. Nope, that's all right. Thank you. So we did provide some additional background information in the issue paper, but to just try to kind of highlight that, in 2019, the TEA established the definition of a technical program according to the statute, and also conducted a program review of existing programs. Now, at that time, several programs were actually placed on hold due to 0 graduates exiting, becoming employed over a 4-year review period. We originally were going to review for 3 years. We actually added a year that time. So we looked at academic years 15, 16, 17, and 18. And actually, I was already going to mention this, but it goes along with what Rita was explaining. To just make you aware, the original plan was to conduct those periodic reviews using that 3-year data period. We did actually, as staff, do a review of academic years 19, 20, and 21, just to take a brief look, but we didn't bring any of that forward to the committee or to the TEA due to those being the pandemic years. And we knew that we would not be, certainly not taking any action based on any data for that time. So our plan right now is to resume that program evaluation activity to review academic years 22, 23, and 24. So that is certainly part of this. We also thought that instead of establishing a separate subcommittee as we sort of left it in 2019, we thought it was more important to first bring the discussion to this committee for review. So we have received a request for a new program in one of those SIP codes that was previously put on hold for low performance. And we have decided to give you a few ideas to sort of prime the pump, if you will, on some things that might be looked at beyond the existing scope of a new program proposal, to help the committee and help the authority make some determinations about programs in this particular situation. I will add, without divulging the program itself, this program meets the current criteria that we look at in our new program proposals. It's because the SIP code was previously put on hold that we wanted to take a look at, are there additional things that we might want to know about a program that's gone through this particular process? So a few examples, just to try to briefly highlight. One of the questions obviously might be, is this occupation that corresponds, is it a high demand occupation? And if it's not, because we do know that there is often significant demand in occupations that are not meeting the high demand criteria for the Department of Labor, we might compare the 10-year outlook for the occupation against that for the entire state. So for instance, right now, 10-year outlook for all occupations in Kansas is an increase of 7%. So we might think about looking at a percentage, maybe a number of job postings that might be incorporated there. Also, any program that we are bringing forward as a potential technical program must be one where the associated occupation is obtainable with less than a baccalaureate degree, an associate degree or less. So something else we might consider in this vein would be, certainly it'll be requiring an associate degree or less, but perhaps we would want to get a sense of how many jobs are available that require more than a high school diploma. So sort of narrow that parameter a little bit, if you will. Perhaps looking obviously at industry recognized certifications included in job postings, wages being something that we might want to know a little bit more about. For this suggestion here, we took a cue from Excel and CTE for the qualifying credentials. One of those parameters that we already use to vet those is to look at if the occupation is at 70% of the average wage in Kansas. So there's a threshold and some data that we might take a look at. Letters of support from employers, perhaps looking to include not only commitments to interviewing program graduates, but including an estimated number of open positions and a timeline that they might be looking at. Making sure that, of course, our employers are consulted in the program proposal, and that's documented. The CLNA would be an obvious thing that we would want to probably take a look at. We also thought about the fact that you may have scenarios where the program at the time that it was put on hold was being run by certain institutions, and whether or not, if it's the same institution or institutions that were running it at the time, looking at what have they modified since then? What have they done to improve or change the program that would ensure that our graduates exited and get jobs and earn a livable wage? So these were just some ideas for the committee to think about. It might be something. What we need to essentially do is kind of give our institutions as well as us as staff some criteria and guidelines to say, let's bring this program forward. It's a good time for it. There's sufficient information where we could make a recommendation. And I would stand for questions.
Sharman, I appreciate your thoughts and kind of following up on our conversation we had earlier this week. Sharman and I talked about, basically the industry's driving this scenario, and yeah, we've got some guardrails, but there's enough within those guardrails to make logical decisions. I support what you put forward, Sharman, especially the industry need. And maybe this is an instance where these support letters need to be a little more specific and a little more customized to truly show the demand. There are things in Kansas that may not appear on KDOL's high demand list, but in a small rural community, if a business that came in to there that had a demand for 500 positions as whatever, everybody likes to use basket weavers. Let's say we had a basket making company roll in, and obviously that's not high demand in Kansas, but in certain communities or pockets of the state, it would be. Anybody else, or am I just rambling?
Sharman, I thought that number 8 was really good, because you've got to identify how it's different than when it was not drawing people. And then I think some of the things we mentioned up above, we just approved or moved forward 2 programs that have the high school equivalent, high school diploma equivalent is required. And we seem to have more of those coming through the pipeline. And so I don't know Well, I'm not sure where that puts us on some of these things and with all the different occupations and anyway. So I think those are, you had some really good identified questions there or points.
And to that point, it might be that we want to get a better sense of perhaps the high school diploma is, what is listed on our data sets that we have available. But we maybe would want more information from employers about if the student comes with certifications A, B, and C, we're going to be in a better position to hire them for perhaps something a little beyond entry level as well. That might be a consideration.
Yeah, this is Ray. I think you're definitely on the right track. And even that example, we see where high school diploma, but yet we hear business and industry say, well, that's the lowest, but here's what we really would welcome and prefer, perhaps. So there's always seemingly, some explanation beyond the requirement, but certainly the preference would be for more. And to know that would be helpful. But I think you're on the right track. And the comment about, business and industry, these letters that they send, I'm one that feels like too often they're the same letter, just put different names on it. Right. And, but today, for example, I was definitely pleased and impressed that WSU Tech actually, had some representatives from Foley willing and to come and say, this is why this program is important to us. I wish more would take that same lead as WSU Tech did today. And for just myself, that's much more meaningful than a letter that's probably been produced for them and they just put their name on it. But overall, I think you're on the right track, and these are things that we will continue, I think, to evaluate as we look at programs. So I'd say, well done.
Thank you.
Yeah, Ray, on that comment, I was just going to follow up even with the discussion at the for the North Central Kansas Tech, along with the affiliation program for Fort Hays State. There was quite a bit of discussion on trying to get industry support. I'd recommended and stated that same feeling you had about you really need to get industry lined up with what you're trying to accomplish here, because they're out there trying to fill the jobs, and the question is, do we have the student base coming out of the tech colleges and community colleges to fill the needs of industry in the state? So that was pretty high on their list of things they wanted to target with trying to reach out to industry. And I think they did a pretty good job out in the western half of the state of doing that.
Good.
So Charmin, this is just for information purposes, right? Or do you?
It is. I would say that perhaps it might be, well, it might be something that we want to talk. Maybe you want to talk a little further during the TEA meeting. What we want to be able to do here is like I said, give the institutions that are attempting to resurrect something that has been removed from technical program status due to low performance. Most of the time we don't have programs like that coming forward, but we will, I anticipate we will at some point have others. And so we want to be able to, like I said, we want to be able to give them some guidance. It might not necessarily need to be voted on per se, but perhaps agreed to that If we could get some of this type of information, that this would give us what we need to evaluate programs that are in that circumstance. For the most part, a lot of these pieces are things that we look at in a new program proposal, but maybe not at this level, if you will. So we don't really say the wage must be at a certain level. And we may even not necessarily say for this purpose that the wage must be at a certain level, but we would want to see how it compares as part of our criteria for making a decision. So it would be the pleasure of the committee whether you would like to have more discussion in the TEA or perhaps forward this on as consent or just as a discussion item.
We do this in a lot of our questions, and what you've done is a nice job of actually memorializing or identifying a lot of the questions that we've started to develop as a committee and what we ask for even new programs. I think the list would be very helpful for institutions to recognize, hey, if you don't include some of this or you don't address these, you're probably going to get questioned, and you may have to come back to the drawing board, because some of them have had to because they didn't. So I thought you did a really good job with it, and in some way, shape, or form, I think it reflects expectations or certainly practice as we have been reviewing programs, not just closed ones, but just programs in general. Whatever we have to do about that, I think it's what we do.
Yeah, one thing I wouldn't mind seeing just overlay with this, it would be just the comparison with the demographic shifts that we see by counties in the state of Kansas as well. Sometimes we can have the best program out there, but there just may not be any customers that are looking to buy it.
And I agree, Mark. For a program that's been, put on the shelf, you might say, and now they want to take it back off the shelf. For me, first question becomes what's changed, and I don't want opinions. I want data, I want something to back that up, from the institutions. And once again, that's where business and industry can play a significant role. Here's what's changed. We weren't there, 6 months ago or 2 years ago. Now we're there. And because of our presence, there is a higher demand. So just something as simple as that, as we continue to talk through, the viability of a program that was once shelved and now is trying to be, come back to life.
Mm-hmm.
So those are just some thoughts that, that I have as we would be, I guess, faced with that decision.
Yeah, I think one comment I'd like to make, I don't know if you guys talked to President Shears out at Northwest Tech, but he had mentioned to me they did some looking into the K-12 student population for their service county that they have out there. And in that next 12-year period, they were looking at losing the base that was greater than the population of Goodland, Kansas. So about 4,000 or 5,000 less students in that area.
Wow.
So, that was one of the things I think that prompted a lot of the discussions with affiliation, because there just may not be the student base feeding that area for, Colby, Goodland, Northwest Hayes, with what we're seeing on the demographic changes that are pending in the next 10, 15 years in this region.
So I guess maybe in answer to the basic question of what's changed with the occupation since the program was reviewed previously, it sounds like we feel like for the most part these things would help us get a clear perspective on that. like I said, I don't feel like this would necessarily be writing a policy to say, you have to answer each one of these things. And then if you do, we will automatically approve your program. It's not sort of like that. It's more of a, here's some examples, some parameters, some things that the institution can provide that will help answer the questions that you all will have, make you comfortable saying, you know what, we think that this program ought to be resurrected and moved back to technical status. Am I hearing that right?
I think you're right, Charmin. Do you have like guidance letters or stuff like that that's not really a policy, but more of a guidance on how to walk through things? Or maybe that's how the approach should be.
We don't, except for the new program proposal itself. Most of these things are sort of not these items to this nth degree, if you will, but the overall, showing the demand, inclusion of the support letters and so forth are already elements that are part of the new program proposal. And those are all outlined in that document as to provide sort of a framework for institutions to create their new program proposals. So this could be, accompanying documentation, suggestions, again, for those programs also that are looking at resurrection, and or I would also say, just for the sake of argument, the Promise Act eligibility. One of the things in there is identifying critical need. So an occupation must be either high demand or high wage, or it needs to be a critical need. And giving institutions some ideas on ways that they could demonstrate that critical need beyond the data that we have in the Department of Labor and so forth, this might also lend itself there as well. Let me see a comment.
Jim just mentioned in the chat, sharing this proposed process with the two-year colleges allow us to provide comments, give input, which is a really good idea. Thank you, Jim.
Absolutely.
Jim, thanks for the comment. If no one disagrees, how about Charmin, if you'll share this with the community and technical colleges and ask them for comment when we bring it back to the August 15th committee meeting, or do we need to take action sooner than that? And maybe it's a general discussion at the May 30th authority meeting.
I would say that it could likely go either way.
I just didn't know timing wise. You hinted to having a program in the queue. I'd hate for them to have to wait,
right?
To August, September timeline when we could maybe get something accomplished May, but May 30th is 2 weeks away. Would that be enough time for the community and tech colleges to comment?
We can share that out this week and try to do that definitely and try to bring that back so that we could have a quick discussion during the May meeting for the TEA, and then we would be able to look at having some guidance for that first meeting in the fall as well. And I see that WSU Tech would like the opportunity to provide input as well. I think that goes without saying, certainly sharing that out to the colleges.
Okay, let's try to do that. If one of the committee members disagrees, let me know. But otherwise, we'll seek comment from the community and tech colleges and have it as a discussion item during our May 30th authority meeting.
Right?
All right. Thanks for shaking your head, Deb. All right. Any other items, Charmin, that we need to be aware of?
Nope,
right.
I don't think so.
Just a reminder, our next committee meeting is in August, as I mentioned, August 15th, and the next authority meeting is Thursday, May 30th, and that is in person. April, thanks for nodding your head. Yep. All right. Are there any objections to, thanks everyone for coming today. Thanks for the reps from North Central Tech and WSU Tech. I'm excited about both of those programs. If there's no other questions or concerns or item of business, unless someone objects, we'll consider this meeting adjourned. See everyone in a couple weeks.
Thanks. Bye all.
Bye-bye.